Sophia Woodsman, What Lies on the Moon. The sedan was old and rusted, but it was mine, and it was going to the moon. Come at me, Nassau. My car's frame bucked as our speed increased on the rainbow road made of starlight. Grace clutched the passenger door reflexively. Are you sure you're ready for this? She glanced at the shaking dashboard. Either of you, we could have taken my dad's town car. Grinning like a madwoman, I squeezed the bare steering wheel and laughed as starlight shone on my face in a kaleidoscope of colors. Grace was reserved on the best of days, but today her brown eyes had an especially severe edge to them. It's fine, Grace, I bubbled. My car runs all right, and I've studied everything there is to know. Besides, I'm sure you've entered plenty of Starlight realms. Grace panicked, whipping her head to look at me incredulously. The car shook with a loud crack, multicolored light reflecting off the windows. What? Sophia, what the hell? I've never done this before. Oh, she hadn't? Without turning my head, I glanced at her out of the corner of my eyes. She raised her eyebrows with a small headshake, as if to say, Yeah, idiot. Returning my eyes to the dazzling road in front of me, I took a deep breath. Fear and adrenaline filled my chest as reality dripped away around us. My voice was small, almost a whisper. Right, we got this. In a single swipe of silvery light, our bodies dissipated. There wasn't any pain, but I couldn't tell if my life was just done or on a loading screen. My perception hung there in the silvery void, but with no me to speak of. I wanted to scream. Time for all that studying to save my life. The book was Pockets in Space by the illustrious Alberto de Leon. The realms of Starlight constitute pure intelligent existence, the basic building block, of course, then being the decision. It wasn't a great read. A caller must needs reconstitute oneself by invoking the essence of their identity. When difficult to determine, core personal decisions may be found by addressing this most basic of queries. What is most important to you? I could feel Grace next to me already forming back into herself. Damn it! I was the infamous Starcaller of Earth. I was the reason we could even attempt this in the first place. The reason we were here. But she was always better than me. Faster, smarter, more level-headed. I was tired of being the second-rate caller, always getting shown up. I was ready to play in her league. Sure, I wasn't a member of Fancy House Majesty, but I could hold my own. This was my opportunity to show that, and I wanted that more than anything. And there it was. I felt my body solidify and found myself on the back of an animal with Grace. The moonlight around us was still forming an environment, but she was herself, as clear as ever. Her dark skin contrasted against a silvery satin dress, but her face was twisted in concern as she looked at me. I lifted little hands to my face, then examined thin, spindly arms. The animal we were on stopped as my voice squeaked out. This doesn't seem quite right. Grace carefully shook her head. No, Sophie, I think you did it wrong. You look like a kid. As we spoke, the animal got nervous and rotated its long gray head around to look at us. It began braying, hee-haw, hee-haw. The creature bucked, and we both fell to the soft dirt ground. The beast looked sickly, with droopy eyes and patchy fur. It regarded us with naked arrogance. I exchanged a glance with Grace. What's with the judgmental donkey? She chuckled. I would imagine that's the noble steed we rode in on. My car looked me right in the eyes and peed. The smell went straight into my brain, tingling like wasabi. Grace gagged, and we scurried away. When was the last time you got your oil changed? She gasped. Sunday? I estimated. This last Sunday. I think it was on a Sunday. Yeah? What year? Shut up. Ignoring Grace for a moment, I took stock of our surroundings. It was a normal wooded area, but all in monochrome, the green of grass and leaves replaced with bright silver. Starlight realms are deeply personal, and you can only enter realms of the planet you're aligned to unless someone else brings you along. There aren't any Starcallers of the moon, but the moon is subservient to the Earth, so we theorized I'd be able to get us here. And I had. I took a moment to let that sink in. Despite whatever was going on with my body and the car, this had worked. Starlight power of the moon was only a theory. Until now. My tiny voice piped up. We did it. It's real. But I was a firm believer in save twice, save often, so I wanted out of this place. Maybe we should head back now and tell the older callers. Grace bit her lower lip, looking away. I'm not so sure they'd even believe us, she ventured. Well, not me, of course, but they'll believe you, I replied. That guilty expression turned sad, and she shook her head. I don't know, maybe. It'd be better if we could bring back proof. Proof? What did she mean, proof? It's not like we were going to pluck baubles out of imagination land to bring back home with us. Maybe we can find some Starlight artifacts here and reconstitute them in reverse when we leave, she mused. God damn it. It's been done before in other realms, she wheedled. I sighed as I grabbed the donkey's reins and walked towards the top of a forested hill. Sure, Grace, we can look around for a little bit, but I don't want to get stuck like this, and the donkey's seen better days. Her eyes moved left and right, shepherding her thoughts. We just need to find something important, like a nexus of lunar power or something along those lines, she said. As I looked out over the valley on the other side of the hill, I just shook my head in disbelief. A large, squat, silvery temple was built across the entire base of the valley. Moonlit trees grew up and around it in fractal patterns. I smiled and pointed. Just throwing it out there, and I'm open to suggestions, but we could check in there. Her face beamed with excitement, and exchanging a single nod, we made our way to the temple in the center of the moon. The temple was more shelter than building. Open on all sides, the silvery vegetation grew everywhere inside the stone structure. Grace was taken in by it all, brushing her left hand over the wall to examine it. Many times I'd seen her form a fist with that hand, focusing her starlight into the brilliant ruby ring she wore on her middle finger. But here, even it was reflecting in black and white. I followed her loosely with the donkey. My short legs were getting tired. I wish I could figure out what went wrong with my body, I complained. She responded absently while examining carvings on the stone walls. You probably channeled the wrong essence. Did you focus honestly on the core of who you are? I resisted the urge to sing-song her question back to her. In truth, I hadn't been focused at all. I was mostly jealous that she had her crap together. Speaking of which, she seemed to reconstitute perfectly. What did you focus on? I asked. She hesitated, then spoke quickly. Oh, nothing. It's not important. Well, it seemed to work out great for you, so it's not nothing. What was it? I demanded. She turned around, anger in her eyes. It's none of your business, Sophie. You clearly have your own problems. Why don't you focus on them instead of badgering me? Ouch. Well, there it was. Grace was practically a princess of House Majesty, but she'd stood by me anyway, treated me like an equal. But I always knew better. When the chips were down, she was one of them, better than me, too good to slum it with a heretic and share how she reconstituted perfectly on the first try. I dropped the donkey's reins and threw my hands up. Fine, I'll figure it out on my own. Good luck finding your lunar nexon or whatever. The beast began to hee-haw neurotically as I left. And look, I played Guardians of Greystone. I know what a nexus is. I was just pissed at her. Some distance would be good to clear my head. The inner walls of the temple formed a maze of small rooms and alcoves. Now on my own, I distracted myself by exploring the little rooms. And soon enough, my investigations turned up a dark set of stairs leading down into a basement. For a moment, I considered telling Grace, but she wanted me to take care of things on my own anyway, so that's what I did. I descended the stairs into darkness. At the bottom of what felt like a marathon of steps Smooth moonlight shimmered around the corner, lighting up the darkness. It swayed back and forth on the stone walls with a rhythm that seemed eerily close to breathing. That corner led into a massive basement room, albeit one without a floor. A single catwalk led all the way across the pit, with a circular dais in the middle. The pit, however, wasn't empty, and I nearly jumped when I saw it. Massive shimmering scales lined the lunar dragon's hide. It slept in the pit beneath the little bridge, curled up nose to butt, its razor-sharp wings folded around itself, forming a blanket. He would have been adorable sleeping there, if every inch of him didn't inspire terror in anyone who laid eyes on him. Motion caught my eye on the far side of the room, and I could barely make out a woman in a shimmery dress making her way down the catwalk on the other side of the room. Grace! I wanted to scream at her. What are you doing? There's a freaking dragon there! But I followed her focus towards the dais in the center, where two glowing, honest-to-God lunar artifacts sat on stone pedestals. One, a long, gnarly dragon's tooth. The other, a silvery dragon eye the size of a yoga balance ball. And she was going to get there first. Stealthily traversing a small bridge is exactly the sort of situation the Starlight of Earth is suited for, but I was unprepared. My reagents were back in the car, or the donkey, or whatever, so I'd just have to make it on my own. My annoyingly small body crept across the bridge, the dragon's slow breathing causing moonlight to cascade back and forth across the little walkway. I had hoped being a child would make me quieter, but my brain was mapped to normal me, and I felt clumsy as hell. Grace got there first, no surprise, and I watched as she examined the artifacts. I'm not sure what she saw, but her mouth curled up into a smile as she grabbed the glowing tooth with her left hand. And, as though it were responding to her touch, the dragon beneath us snorted and woke up. Her eyes went wide as the dragon reared up in a single jerky motion, his back demolishing the piece of bridge I was standing on. I jumped as far as my little legs could take me and rolled clumsily to a stop on the dais. Not to be outdone, I grabbed the eye from the pedestal as the creature whirled around beneath us. The circular platform shook like an earthquake as the dragon shifted around down there. And then it leapt forward through a massive tunnel I hadn't noticed, its tail slapping the dais and knocking both of us off our feet. We both reached out with a single free hand and grabbed onto the lip around the edge of the platform. My body strained as I barely held on, jerking once from the force of the fall. Grace hung there as well, her left hand barely holding the dragon's tooth. Her left hand, the one with her ruby ring, the hand she had to form into a fist in order to use her starlight. Shit! I still had the eye balanced awkwardly between my right arm and hip. God, my muscles hurt. I hated this little kid body. I wasn't going to be able to hang on much longer. But I wasn't about to lose. This was my time. I got us here, and I wasn't going to be the one to leave here empty-handed. I looked at Grace. Let go of the tooth, then pull yourself up with both hands. Then you can pull me up and we'll get out of here. She shot me a dirty look and tried to pull herself up with a single arm, struggling while hanging onto the heavy tooth. She got maybe an inch, then almost lost her grip entirely. Grace! I shouted. She looked at me, then down to the tooth in her hand. I could almost see her swallow her pride when she turned desperate eyes towards me. The rumbling subsided, and the room went silent. I thought about my dad, she blurted out, the statement echoing throughout the pit. I shook my head at her. What? When we reconstituted. This is a chance for him to notice me, to take me seriously, to respect me. If we prove a new source of power exists here, he'll have no choice but to look at me. I had no idea, and just hung there with a dumbstruck look on my face. Grace shook her head. I sort of wish I'd ended up like you. At least that would mean there's more to me than Dad. But even this place thinks I'm defined by him. She looked ashamed. I need this, Sophie. I wasn't used to thinking of Grace as someone who struggled with anything, really. But it made sense. The way she was acting, it wasn't about me. She had her own problems, and I wanted to be there for her. That was it. My jealousy, my insecurities, as real as they were distractions. What I wanted most was to be there for my friend. She needed this more than I did, and I'd been too stupid to see it. Enriching her world would enrich mine. With that thought, I felt strength returning to my arms. A calm came over me, and I knew immediately what I needed to do. I caught her eyes with mine and smiled, my voice now my own and resolute. I'm here for you, Grace. I chucked the eye into the void beneath us, and vitality surged back into my body, restoring me completely. I felt my face mature, my limbs lengthen. Pulling hard with both arms, I practically leapt up onto the ledge. I grabbed Grace's arm and hauled her up until she could get her legs underneath her. Time to go, I said. Agreed. We both scrambled to safety, making our way to the tunnel she came in through. There was no sign of the dragon as we reached the donkey still waiting there in the center of the temple's ground floor. Maybe it forgot about us? Grace suggested. And then the far side of the valley absolutely erupted as the massive dragon burst out of the ground. Its silvery head had a severe underbite, and its one eye darted back and forth, looking everywhere, unsynchronized with the head, as if it had a mind of its own. And then it stretched like a dog at the top of the valley, albeit the size of a barge. Its crazy eye locked onto us, and it pushed off the ground, silvery wings carrying it towards us. I looked at Grace. I looked at the donkey. And I had an idea. I insisted on taking my car because it was mine. Even though your dad's is in better shape, I thought I needed to prove I could do it without help from your family. She looked at me, then back at the rushing dragon, her eyes huge. Yeah, Sophie, I kind of figured. Are we doing last words or something? Because I'd still like to get out of here. I smiled. I wasn't really fessing up to you. More myself, I think. I'm starting to realize just how much the truth matters in this place. Watch. Accepting my dumb decision to bring my crummy car for what it was, my calm spread to the donkey, and the braying faded into an equally obnoxious panic button alarm as the beast transformed back into my neglected sedan. Grace laughed victoriously. Nice! And we strapped into the car. I had assumed flying around to the front of the temple would slow the dragon down at least a little, but it had other plans. Beelining towards us, it crashed through two of the support columns holding the back of the temple up. The engine rumbled on, and for the first time in my life, I literally floored it. The back end of the sedan spun way out, and I nearly lost control as huge chunks of stone temple fell from the sky around us. Smaller pieces of dust and debris were being sucked backwards past us, and I realized the dragon was taking a very deep breath. Crap! Glove compartment! I yelled. Grace flicked it open and handed me a styrofoam cup filled with starlight-infused soil of the earth. Unceremoniously, I grabbed a handful of the dirt, quickly spat the phrase perfection of fitness, and absorbed all the starlight I could. In an instant, my body heated up. Fat burned, muscle repaired, but most importantly, my reflexes and perceptions got jacked. In slow motion, I saw the solid mass of lunar fire shoot out from the dragon's mouth like a laser beam. His aim was respectable. He was leading me perfectly, the little shit, but my hands were steady, my motions sure, even with bits of dirt now everywhere. Pulling on the emergency brake, I cranked the steering wheel and my sedan drifted in a long arc, just barely missing ground zero of the blast. The dragon raised its head and the tail end of the beam swiped up and across the final temple columns in front of us. The temple's entrance, our exit, began to fall. "Keep going! I've got this!" I heard Grace say in slow motion. I'd seen her control objects before, but nothing of that size. It was our best shot, though, and I gunned it. She held her left fist out towards the windshield, and the ruby on her ring glowed red, the first bit of color I'd seen in this place, warming the monochrome. The pillars in front of us froze in place, mid-fall. But holy crap, it wasn't just that. I realized in that moment that the entire ceiling was dropping on us, and that too was frozen in the air 5 feet above the car. Her eyes were strained in concentration as sweat dripped down her face. Just a few more seconds, Grace. And then the ruby on her ring exploded. The force of it smacked her hand against the passenger side window, and she yelped as everything came crashing down. But the little car's engine was true, if only just, and the structure fell to the ground in our wake. We emerged from the fallen temple in a cloud of dust and smoke. I did not look back. It was a small miracle the car didn't get stuck in the grassy hill leaving the valley, but we made it. Back where we entered this realm, I could feel the energy of reality hanging there. We could go home. And none too soon. Who knew how close the dragon was to catching up again? I turned to Grace. You still have it? She giggled, lifting the large silver tooth from the back seat. Now that's an artifact worth remembering. Pretty sure that's going to make an impression on him, I said. Grace wore a proud, hopeful grin. Yeah, I think you're right. I took one last look at the silver forest, revved the engine, and willed us back to the real world. Lord Thomas's office was tactically tidy. 3 certifications decorated the otherwise bare eggshell walls. Curtains were drawn half shut over a huge window that overlooked Crosschester's business district. He wore a black suit and sat on a simple wooden chair behind his desk. He was bald and had deep brown eyes that could bore a hole through your soul. I got the impression lying to this man would be a pointless endeavor, and I shuddered to think of what he saw when he looked at me with those eyes. He motioned for us to approach. We did, but declined to sit on the nice leather seats prepared for guests. He stood as Grace held out the silvery dragon's tooth. Her voice was nervous. Hi, Dad. We were able to get to the moon successfully. Lunar Starlight is real. We brought back this. He took the artifact in his hands and regarded it with a skeptical smirk. His eyes found me for a moment, and then he shrugged, placing the tooth down on his desk. It's at very least a curiosity. Maybe Ethan's team will look it over. Grace took in a quick breath, like she was about to respond, but he just walked away. He hardly even acknowledged her as he made his way to the office's door. I have a meeting with King Crow. You broke your ring. Fix it soon. It's dangerous like that. And with that, he was gone. I wanted to protest, but it was already too late. Shit, was that really it? It happened so quick. Grace stood there by her father's desk, looking brittle and very alone. In all the years I'd known her, I'd never seen her like that, and it broke my heart. She'd been there for me so many times. I couldn't make this right, but I had to do something. I walked up beside her, took her hand and squeezed. She squeezed back as her shoulders shook. You did a really good job today, I said. What we did was important. I'd have never been able to do it without you. Thank you. I felt her sad smile, but didn't look to see if there were tears. She wouldn't want me to. Her voice was small. Thanks, Sophie. It means a lot. I felt her place the silvery tooth in my hand. You should probably head home, she said. What? But your dad just said someone was going to look into it. When they do, they'll see that Lunar Starlight is real. That'll change everything, our entire understanding. Sophia, no. Her bitter voice interrupted. It's not happening. They don't care. Ethan's backlog is a black hole. Take it. Just take it. I was stunned. How could they not care about something this important? But Grace seemed resolute, and I wasn't about to argue with her. I took the artifact, gave her a hug, and left her in her father's office. I could tell my roommate wanted to be alone for a bit. She knew I'd be there when she was ready. I'd be sure of it. I headed home. When the garage door closed behind me, I reclined my seat and laid there with the tooth resting on my chest, contemplating a world that didn't want to move forward. The heretic Starcaller of the Earth didn't have that luxury. I had to move forward. And not just keeping up with Grace. I realized I had to start doing things my way. Placing the tooth on the dash, I pondered what I had to offer this crazy world. And the tooth began to glow with the light of the moon. Static crackled in my car's speakers as wispy tendrils of silvery smoke formed into the lunar dragon's head on my dashboard, albeit the size of a bull's. Its raspy voice spoke over the car radio. "Caller, you seek the truth. This pleases Luna." Huh, I smirked, looking at the familiar. He continued, "There is much I can teach someone who's willing to see things as they truly are." New options. My loadout was expanding. And not despite being an outsider, but because of it. My heart warmed at the thought. Somewhere in this tangled mess of new roads ahead was me, the person I was meant to be. And for the first time in my life, I was sure of it. I looked at the little dragon, confidence and mischief dancing in my eyes. "All right then, what can you teach me? I'm ready to learn."